All right, what is up, guys? Doing something a little bit different. Instead of doing the usual match recap for the first time this season, this is a match preview, and I'm pretty sure I will be doing some sort of reaction response to this match following the result. But since it's such a big match, the first quote unquote big match of the season, uh, figured no better time than now than to do a preview and talk about some of the things that are on my mind going into this match. I think it is a great matchup. We're in for quite the quite the game, to say the least, is what I predict. In Newcastle at St. James, one of the craziest atmospheres in England at times. Newcastle's a great team right now, at least on the come up. Maybe not great. I mean, they're in a kind of transitional period, but they have their days. And Barca is who we know they are based on last season. So let me just get right into it. Let's start at the most basic level. Start with the predicted lineup. So I actually have it mixed up here for some reason. The front three should be Rashford on the left, Lewandowski up top, Rafinha on the right, followed by midfielder Fermin, Pedri, and Casado. Gerard Martin, Cubarsí, Araujo, Kunde, and Garcia. And then you see Newcastle's lineup. We got Barnes, Wiltemad, Murphy, Joelinton, Tonali, Guimarães. So I'm be honest with you, I don't I don't really know too much as far as the ins and outs of Newcastle's lineup, but I think this is one of their strongest 11s, and I think this is the one that they will field against Barcelona. There's a lot to digest here. For Barca, I do want this front three because, to be quite honest with you, I just think Lewandowski, with his experience, with his ability to be in the right position, they're going to need all the chances they can take. And if we're just comparing who is the best finisher on Barcelona from the nine, it's Lewandowski, no doubt about it. And you saw that in his last performance against Valencia. He scored 2 goals off the bench. He looked fantastic. And I definitely want him to start up top. Rashford and Rafinha on the wings, very important. The midfield, I mean, they're going to be undersized. No way around it. I think no matter what midfield Barcelona starts, or puts out there in general, they're going to be extremely undersized against this Newcastle team. Same can be said for the defense. Araujo is the tallest person on Barca, and he's going to be significantly shorter than some of the players that he's going up against, especially Multimud. So, you know, it's going to be so interesting how Flick approaches this matchup. But what I do want to see is just that same midfield from the last game. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. Barca looked the best they have looked all season in that last game against Valencia in La Liga, and I think they should just keep something remotely similar to that lineup and have that consistency. Frenkie de Jong is back, and I wouldn't be surprised if he starts, but I also um, I'm predicting that he'll come off the bench in the second half, depending on what the situation of the game is. Maybe he comes on right to begin the second half. Maybe he comes on 60, 70th minute or so. Flick likes to ease guys back from injury and not throw them to the fire, so to speak. So I do think that this will be more or less what the lineup is tomorrow. And honestly, I'm totally okay with this. Without Yamal, it's very hard to replicate him as a player, of course. But I do think without him, this is our strongest 11. So um, we will see. Let's take a look at the recent form. So Barca's been getting results this season. To a lot of people, they haven't been super convincing. But the last match, coming off of the international break against Valencia, they looked fantastic. The best they've looked all season. It looked like Barca from last season when they would just be hunting for goal after goal after goal after goal, and they were exceptional. And this was 6-0. It was a beatdown, and it very easily could have been 7-8-9-0 if more chances were put away. But we don't want to get too greedy. Talking about Newcastle's recent form, I mean, they play in the Prem. I believe they're 10th in the Premier League at this current moment, coming off a win as well against Wolverhampton. But aside from that, haven't looked great. Haven't looked great. I mean, you see a tie against Leeds, lost to Liverpool, which is, Liverpool are the best team in the Prem right now, so it's kind of tough to really hold that against them. But then you see 0-0 draw, no draw against Aston Villa. So it's like up and down, mixed bag. Kind of don't know what to expect from Newcastle at the current point in time. Most of my thoughts about them are going to be based on, what I saw from them maybe last season. And the squad is different. I mean, they just lost Isak. They have replaced him, and who knows how that's going to play out. This is just a different team with a little bit of a different profile than they have in recent seasons. And so, I do think that going into this match, Barcelona may have a little bit more of momentum, but Newcastle is the home team. And it's going to be interesting. You don't want to sleep on anybody because these are the teams that can really cause an issue for a team like Barcelona. So let's just compare some of the philosophies of the two teams. So Barcelona is known for this high line, this high press that they've been running under Hansi Flick. And the most important thing is to control, not only in the midfield, but throughout the entire field, just control possession, right? Make sure you hold on to possession, move up the field slowly with stringing together passes, and then eventually you have somebody running into space, whether it be Rafinha, whether it be Yamal when he's healthy, or in this case, Rashford, one of the overlapping fullbacks. We're waiting for the chance to arise, not as direct as a lot of other teams tend to be, although Barcelona, when they win the ball back, can be extremely deadly on the counterattack as well. Um, as opposed to Newcastle, I think in tomorrow's match or today's match, depending on wherever this video is posted, whenever people are watching it, I think I do expect them to be very reliant on set pieces because I don't think with the midfield matchup they're going to be able to hold on to the ball that much. I really don't think so. They do have some good midfielders. I will give them that, but none as good as Pedri. And I just think they're going to have a hard time holding on to the ball. So they're going to have to make the most of it when they do have it. I expect aggressive, high press, physical from Newcastle. They're going to have to take this one to Barca. In a straight footballing competition, I do not see Newcastle on the same level as Barcelona. Maybe that's me being biased. I don't think most people would disagree. So they're going to have to use what they're good for, and that is their size, their strength, their physicality to make Barca uncomfortable, to try and knock them off the ball and kind of keep them out of their comfort zone. But Newcastle is a team that can be, again, dangerous in the counter. They like to overlap with their fullbacks a whole lot. And I think that can work in their favor, but it can also end up coming back to bite them, depending on what kind of form we get out of Rafinha or Rashford. And it's going to be interesting. This is going to be an interesting chess match. Newcastle is a very versatile team, and they can play in a lot of different styles, in a similar way to how Barcelona, can really excel in a different way from most. And so this is two teams that have, in some ways, similar philosophies. But as they say in combat sports and boxing, styles make fights, and this is going to be a really interesting one to see. It's not as easy just to say, oh, well, Barca's, first or second in the Liga, Newcastle's 10th. No, it doesn't really work that way. So what am I watching for? Height difference. Number one, first and foremost, the height difference is going to be the talking point of this match all day, before, after, post and pre-match. Everyone's just going to be talking about the height of these players on Newcastle, how much bigger they are than Barcelona. And yes, I mean, it's not usually this big of a disparity. That's true. And the last team that I can think of that really exploited that and used it to their advantage was probably Inter Milan. Um, Players like Dumfries, players like Kahanoglu, players like, just some of the guys that they have on their team. Barca just didn't really have an answer for that disadvantage rather. And so it was exploited especially on set pieces, but just throughout the game, being able to outmuscle some of the Barcelona players and win the ball away from them, it's something that I hope Flick and these guys have learned from and take that experience, because I do think that Newcastle's style of play can be somewhat similar to what we saw from Inter Milan last year. Do I think that Newcastle has the quality that Inter Milan rather had last season? I do not. But I do think they can offer some sort of a semblance to that Inter Milan matchup. And so that's going to be interesting. Midfield battle. Like I said, I think arguably the biggest strength of this Newcastle side is in its midfield, and they do have a good group of midfielders in Tonali, in Joelinton, and in Guimaraes. And I expect those guys to have solid performances, but the reality of the situation is I'm leaning towards Barcelona's midfield because Pedri is in Barcelona's midfield, and I've seen Pedri just absolutely run laps and dominate against every single top tier midfielder he's come up against. I genuinely, that is the battle to watch. That's where the game is probably going to be won, because if Barcelona can really hold on to possession for, you know, 65, 70, 75% of the game, it's going to go a lot easier for them. But if we're looking at a 50-50 sort of game, who knows how that goes? Who knows how that goes? Because I think both teams will have their chances, and it's going to come down to who is the most clinical on the ball. What else? So, no Lamine, still out, and I'm hearing reports of deferring, you know, things about, it's not that serious, but then it's like, well, they don't want to rush him back. There's a few winnable games in La Liga, especially with the way they looked against Valencia. Let's just save him until PSG. So it's like, all right, he's going to sit out for nearly, 3-ish weeks. Like, that seems kind of serious, but I guess we don't know. The reality is he's not playing against Newcastle United, which is a bummer, but it's going to be interesting to see. This game's really going to fall to some of the players in the attack to make a difference, to make something happen, and we'll see how that goes. Back line. Um, Newcastle's got some tall players on their back line. Dan Burn, most notably, huge guy, and they have huge players in attack as well. And Barcelona, quite honestly, doesn't have that many tall players, that many physically imposing players. So it's going to be really, really interesting to see how each backline responds to a completely different challenge from the opposition. Barcelona is looking at more speed, more agility, and Newcastle is looking, like I said, for that physicality, that size differential, and they're looking to exploit that. And last but not least, the atmosphere at St. James. I've seen Newcastle games be absolutely rocking. I've seen them be kind of dead. So, I do expect Barcelona rolls into town. The fans are going to show up. They're going to show out. I expect crazy tifos in the crowd. I expect chants. I expect everything. It's going to be pure cinema. I'm so excited for this. I love just watching a game at home, turning the volume all the way up, and just like feeling like I'm there. Trying to get immersed in that experience. So this is going to be a good one for that. I think this is going to be a loud game. I think it's going to be a physical game. I think the crowd is going to be so involved in this one. And that's probably going to be one of the biggest factors in this match. So let's go over some key players. The usual suspects. Pedri, I mean, not much has to be said. In my opinion, the best midfielder in the world, especially in his position. This guy just puts man of the match performance after man of the match performance after man of the match performance. Every single game, he has an argument. He's in that handful of guys who are in the argument for man of the match. He makes this team move. Yes, no Lamine is tough. But as long as Pedri is there, I feel that we have a shot. John Garcia. So, as I said, it is going to come down to the back lines, but luckily, John Garcia has bailed Barca out in some games where their high press has been exploited. It really is going to come down to how many chances Newcastle is able to create. I think the biggest risk and the biggest threat they're going to pose is going to come from set pieces. They probably will have some nice counterattacks, but it depends. If they want to play open, and not have that, mid block or low block that they can sometimes be known to play with, if they want to play open and try and play into Barcelona's hand, I think they're going to get smoked. But if they play smart and they try to absorb pressure and launch counterattacks, I do think they have a very, very, very good chance at, causing Barcelona a lot of issues in this game. And John Garcia is just going to have to be ready for whatever comes because, watching these Barcelona games, they can be completely dominating and a chance just kind of spawns out of thin air. So it's going to come down to how clinical they are. Of course, Rafinha. So, in my opinion, and in the opinion of many, but not just opinions, statistically speaking, Rafinha was far and away the best player in the UEFA Champions League last season. I understand Barcelona did not make the final. They were a game away. I understand that they did not win. But Rafinha had more goals than any player, and he also had more assists than any player, and he had more goals and assists than any player. He was extremely clutch for Barcelona. Scored a hat trick against Bayern, scored game winners against Benfica. Just an absolute nightmare last year in the Champions League. This guy was absurd, and I expect him to rise to the occasion. Without Yamal, this game is really going to come down in a lot of ways to how effective Rafinha can be, and I do predict that he will have a massive game tomorrow and show exactly why he is so important to Barcelona. As far as Newcastle's biggest key players, we're going to go Wolfsmad. Again, I don't even know if I'm pronouncing the guy's name right. Kind of is what it is. I'm going to learn tomorrow, surely, because this guy I think is going to cause a lot of headaches. for Barcelona's team, for the defense. Um, Good player. I've seen a little bit of him in the German league. He's a decent player. It's still yet to be seen. Obviously, it's not the same as being matched up against Alexander Isak, who a few months ago it would have been Isak leading the charge for Newcastle. But this is who's replacing him. He offers a totally different profile, and honestly, I think his profile of player is frightening for this Barcelona team. Depending on who the center back pairing is, they have their hands full for sure. But I do predict that it will be Araujo because he can match some physicality. He's a lot shorter still, but he is the tallest of the defenders that Barcelona has. So we'll see what's up with that. Dan Burn, like I said, center back, huge guy. I believe 6'3" or 6'4". So it's like set pieces, having to mark both of these guys on set pieces is just not gonna be fun to watch for me. I'm going to be stressing it every single time there's a corner or a free kick or even a throw in for that matter. I'm going to be like, hiding behind my hands. But we'll see. Maybe it doesn't end up to be as big of an issue as I'm making it out to be. Bruno Guimaraes. My opinion, without Isak now, I think Bruno Guimaraes is the engine of the Newcastle midfield. I think he is probably the best player still on the team at the moment, and he is a captain of the Newcastle United side. This guy is a great, very versatile midfielder who does a lot in attack, who does a lot in defense, and he helps this team move. And it's going to be interesting to see that matchup between him and Pedri in the midfield, or him and Fermin Lopez, just these guys rotating on each other and defending and attacking against one another. I do think that if Bruno Guimaraes cannot get comfortable and not have an imprint on this game, Newcastle's in for a long night. And so, that's really where we are as far as key players. So my prediction, Newcastle will threaten, right, on set pieces, and they're going to try to use their physicality to sway the game. They're going to try and knock Barcelona around. They are going to try and, win every aerial ball, every duel. They are going to just try and make this one a messy one. I'm not saying they're going to play dirty by any means, but I think the crowd will be rocking. I think Newcastle knows they have the size and strength advantage, and they're going to try to use it, as they should. But Barca will dominate in possession. They will create the better chances from open play. I'm talking counterattacks, crosses into Lewandowski. I do think that they have the speed. I do think that they have the clinical ability on the ball between Rashford, between Rafinha, between Fermin, between Pedri, that it's just too much for a team like Newcastle. Respect to them, but they are not one of the top teams in England at the moment. In my opinion, they're not really top 3, top 4 material currently. I think they can be an issue on a match-to-match basis, sure, and they are going to be home, which definitely helps their cause. But I think Rafinha, Rashford will ultimately be way too much for Newcastle. As you know, Rashford spent a lot of time in the Premier League, a little bit familiar with playing in St. James, playing against Newcastle. I do think that he is a key player to watch. If he has a big game in this match against Newcastle, Barcelona will cook. Barcelona will score goals. And my prediction, humble, I almost said 3-1, but I'm going to go 2-1 Barcelona win. I'm trying to be a little bit optimistic here. Maybe this is a biased take, but I do think that Barcelona, yes, will have some scary moments, but Joan Garcia will save the day. I do think they will eventually come out on top in this match. So, that is pretty much it. Like I said, I'm going to try and get a recap out once this match is over. I'm so excited for this match. I'm so excited for the Champions League. The matches that have been going on have just been so good and so action-packed and drama-packed. And so I just can't wait for my favorite team to be involved in the drama and the storylines and the, I'm just so excited. Champions League football is the best, man. So let me know what you think. And hopefully, when it comes time to do the recap, I'm not eating my words and we get a nice 2-1 or 3-1 Barcelona win. Hey, maybe we get 5-0. Who knows? We're going to have to see. But until then, Visa Barça. I'll see you around.